This is part 2 of a seminar I gave at the 2014 Western Washington Sportsman Show in Puyallup, Washington. And we're talking about drift fishing artificial legs. Drift fishing is a staple for fishing steelhead in the Pacific Northwest. Using artificial legs for steelhead can be very effective for steelhead in all types of water. Here in part 2, I talk about leader length and choosing artificial legs for drift fishing.
So, you need a variety of lead. Cut your lead at home. Don't wait till you're on the river and cut your lead. Those of you that have boats and you take friends fishing with you, if you're drift fishing, he should drift fish. Do the same thing. You guys will stop tangling up and hooking into each other, because if everyone is fishing the exact same everything, then you're fishing more effectively and you're going to have more fun fishing. Okay? You need to fish effectively and efficiently. The last thing outside of lead, and believe it or not, that little piece of lead that's right on there that's swinging around about 100 miles an hour, that's what it takes to put this on the bottom. It'll float, but that lead will touch the bottom. Is that ridiculous in this water? I couldn't even cut that with my machine. The last thing that you need to make sure is balanced is your terminal tackle. My terminal tackle, again, I use Vision, is size 10. All of my salmon, all of my steelhead in the rivers, except for Columbia River springers and Columbia River salmon fishing, is size 10. Understand that if you buy beau-mac size 10, it is a different weight and a different size than Vision size 10. If you buy Danielson or you buy Owner, it's all different. Use the same stuff. If you're going to buy stuff, buy a pack of 100 or so, use the same stuff, use it till it's gone, then change over to something else. But take a look at it, because it all changes how everything floats. And trust me when I say, this stuff is important. I wouldn't talk about it if it wasn't. Every rod you pick up, even the 3 that are over there with floats, have the same size of everything on them. Because everyone in the boat, and I'll fish up to 6, fish effectively. And they're not tangling up into each other. Or they're not casting out and their gear. And how many of you have this happened to you? You cast out and your leader comes right back over your main line and goes shoo, shoo, shoo. Yeah? Either your leader's too heavy or you have the wrong terminal tackle on, the wrong swivel, the wrong snap. Now for lead, you guys, I know some of you may want to use a 3-way, right? It's fixed. Go ahead, use a 3-way. If you like 3-ways, use them. I like the snap swivels. I like them to slide. If the weight does get hung up on something, I'd rather it slide down the main line. I don't lose my fish until that lead pops off or the snap swivel breaks. Okay? Size 10 terminal tackle has a lot greater strength than most of you give it credit for. I know for a fact that with Vision, a barrel swivel, the breaking strength is 48 pounds static. Right? Static. But we are fishing dynamic. Okay? So you can get away with a lot more than 48 pounds on that, because it's not a constant, steady pressure of 48 pounds. Okay, egg fishing. We've got our balance system. We're not going to have tired arms at the end of the day. You have to tie your leaders. So what do? How many of you guys, and give me some numbers, when you tie your leaders to go drift fishing, whether it's with cheaters and yarn or it's with eggs, what are we tying? How many of you guys are tying 3-footers? 4-footers? 5-footers? No 5s? If there's no 5s, there's no 6s. Some 6s? Okay, I got some 6s. Anybody longer than 6? 6s and up. All right. The max leader I tie when I tie all of my egg or yarn is 6. That's it. 6 foot. Okay? You get longer than that, some of the fish and game guys might say, well, you're doing something other than hooking them in the mouth. So I tie mine at 6, right? My leader length choice in normal egg and drift fishing, whether it's yarns or eggs, is based on the water clarity. That's what I'm looking at, is water clarity. But when you fish artificial eggs, you cannot tie 6 foot leaders because artificial eggs float. And when you throw your gear in the water and that lead gets on the bottom and is ticking 6 to 8 feet, your eggs are 6 foot up off the bottom. 6 foot, right? These eggs float. Now guys, I use the beau-mac eggs. I'm going to keep the weight out. Just put the egg in there. Got a little bit of yarn on it, so she's sitting just below. And that's because of the yarn. But it's completely buoyant. Completely buoyant. If I decide to use easy eggs instead of the beau-mac, here's some easy eggs that we tied up into a knot. Here's a string of them. They float. So if you have a 6 foot leader, you're 6 foot off the bottom. So what do we do for leaders? You have to shorten them up. Okay? You have to shorten them up. On average, I'm running a 2 to 3 foot leader for artificial eggs. 2 to 3 foot. That's it. Now, Doug, you just said that those fish are sitting off the bottom 12 to 18 inches. But I'm going to put a 3 foot leader on. Okay, 12 to 18 inches, 36 inches. And they're floating up. We have one other thing that we have to take into account. And don't forget this, and people do it all the time. The hydraulics of the river, okay? If you're ticking across the bottom, the eggs aren't riding straight up. They are floating in the water. They might be behind at one point. They might be in front of the weight at one point. They'll be above the weight, but the hydraulics of the river are pushing them down, okay? All right. That's why you may be 2 to 3 foot. If you've got really good visibility, 2 to 3 foot of visibility, run 3 foot. If you've got a couple feet of visibility, which is pretty common around here, run a 2 foot leader. Your money. It's going to be good. All right? So, getting eggs. Let's talk about that real quick. There's choices now on the market. There used to not be choices. And we'll start passing this around. So here are the easy eggs. I know you guys, if you've even thought about this, have seen easy eggs. Sometimes people get nervous about this. You know, how many do I use? Well, I'll pull off 5, right? And I'll do a couple overhand knots. Okay, here's a clump of easy eggs. There you go, pass that around. Let's give you guys some easy eggs over here too, because it's easy. Okay, easy eggs are cool. These easy eggs have a shrimp base and flavor. Here you go. Woo, there it is. It's right by your foot. Okay, now those are the easy eggs, but they come scented. They come scented. So if you're going to use easy eggs and you're using shrimp scent, you're good. But what if you're throwing anise on? Now you have a combination. You have anise and shrimp. Well, if that doesn't work, you need to try something else. I said I like beau-mac eggs. That's what I'm using, or beau-mac. And these are the beau-mac egg clusters. These are the large ones. Here you go, pass this around. And you got to, see, they're bouncy. You got to pinch that little tag off. I just pulled them so you can pass them around. No scent. Now, that's the larger size. Check this out, though. We've got a smaller size. And holy cow, look how small this is. Right? There's a smaller size. And color variety. And if you're like, you know what? I like those easy eggs. I like to change it up. I want, 6 eggs on my strand. Well, beau-mac's got you covered there too. Because they have strands of eggs as well. And they're not scented. So you get to put whatever you want on them. Right? And scents, pick one of 100. I mean, ProCure alone has so many scents I can't even count them all off to you. You need somebody like George Carlin that can say all those words really fast. Right? Everything I've just handed you floats. And then we've got this odd duck. beau-mac created an egg that sinks. It's called Steelhead candy. I'm not going to drop it because it does sink and I don't want to get my arm wet. But feel what this feels like. Very pliable, right? Pass that around. Whoever ends up with those, you guys can keep those. I don't need them back. That's fine. So what do you do with these eggs? Oh, man. Use a cheater or a corky. If you're the corky kind of person, use your corkies. If you're a cheater, use a cheater. What size? 10. 10 gets you a good float on those. I've got one rigged up right here. Okay? So right here, make sure my lead's, there we go, am I a little too long? I might be a tad long, but that's all right. These don't float, so I need to use a cheater or a corky to get that to sit in the right position. He's not bit. I think he got snagged. Right? So you definitely, if you're that cheater, corky kind of person because you want color variety, then you want to use Steelhead candy. Because with easy eggs and with the beau-mac egg clusters, whether it's the small or the large, you cannot use a cheater or a corky. If you do, you're going to need 3 ounces of lead to keep it on the bottom because it's going to float. Okay? But Steelhead candy gives you that option. It gives you that option of fishing and having your cheaters or corkies. And I know guys that are just, I'm not fishing for Steelhead unless I have a cheater or a corky. Okay? Now, with that said, you guys, I know maybe you've gotten frustrated with your cheater or corky sliding around, up and down, and you don't know what your gear's doing down there. What I use here are called wedgies. There's a couple products on the market, but you can pretty much get beau-mac wedgies anywhere. And it's simply it's a pack of guys like this. They're cheap. You pull one off. It's tapered. You stick it into the cheater or the corky. You pull it, and then you pinch the end off or snip it with your nippers. Your cheater, your corky won't go anywhere.
Yeah, fancy toothpick, right?
And it's you know what? You can't pick your teeth with it, but you can get it out of your cheater or corky later. Unlike toothpicks that swell up, and you can't ever get them out, right? Okay. So we've got that. Last thing, very important, yarn. I like using a little bit of yarn with my eggs. I do. Sometimes I even throw a little bit of yarn on my actual egg clusters, my cured eggs, right? Steelhead bite into that. They get their teeth wrapped up in that yarn. I've literally pulled Steelhead to the boat. Clients have pulled Steelhead to the boat, and it was just that yarn that was holding on to them. They hit it, but 9 times out of 10, if it's like that, it's because the client set the hook wrong, right? You guys, when you set your hooks, you follow your line, and we'll talk about this more in a minute. You set your hook up. This isn't Bassmaster. You can't set it sideways, okay? Steelhead and salmon have fixed mouths. They don't have mouths that extend like crappie and bass. If you set the hook sideways, it's a good chance you could pull that hook right out of their mouth. And that yarn will hang on those teeth, so I like that. What else does yarn do for us? What's it give us? Another color choice. It's huge, right? If you have clear water conditions and you're like, man, this is tough, I'm gonna use these really dark eggs here and I'm gonna throw some black yarn on there, that'll be the ticket. Well then, that's what you can do, right?
Okay folks, I hope that information is helpful. Make sure you move on to part 3, where we talk about choosing water and fishing effectively.